next we hear from Jim Bowers and Brenda Holden. Jim, who you'll soon meet, is generously funding the Cumbria Communications Project. It's a 3-year project supporting 4 organisations that are working with families in Barrow, Pleatermore in West Cumbria and Kendal. The project aims to improve speech and language development in 0 to 3-year-olds. Jim grew up in Wythenshawe, Manchester, and is one of 8 children. After gaining a BA Honours and an MA in English Literature at Cambridge, he pursued a teaching career in Newcastle before spending 6 years as a Principal Education Officer with a focus on special needs in County Durham. In 1994, Jim was invited to act as a professional advisor to the Witherslack Group, which ran a small group of schools catering for children with emotional and behavioural difficulties in the Northwest. He soon became managing director and subsequently went on to buy the business. By the time he stepped down as a non-exec director in 2017, the group had flourished, running 10 schools nationwide, all rated by Ofsted as outstanding. Jim remains passionate about education and equality of opportunity. He strongly believes that the circumstances you are born into should not be a barrier to fulfilling your potential. Brenda has taught in West Cumbrian schools for over 35 years, becoming head teacher of 2 schools based in areas of high deprivation. She became a trustee of the Howgill Family Centre based at Pleatermore when she retired 11 years ago and has been chair for the last 5 years. Brenda is committed to supporting children and families from disadvantaged communities. Howgill is one of the 4 organisations involved in delivering the Cumbria Communications Project, providing early interventions and removing barriers to communication, which we'll hear more about now. Thank you.
This is still the case. In areas of social deprivation, the percentage of children who begin school with language that's expected for their age is still well below half. There are many reasons for this. The main one is intergenerational parental knowledge about child's development and their education and their aspirations.
Yeah, just following on from Brenda, I think the main thing that I would pick up is that strong link with poverty. The figures that were quoted in the question that over 50% of kids arriving at school with language delay, it obviously varies from area to area, but there is this very strong link with social deprivation. So whereas the national average is about 20%, you'll see that in some areas, relatively affluent areas, that can be very low, in 2-3%. Whereas in some areas, in the areas of highest deprivation, it's well over 50%. And I've worked with areas in the UK where those kind of issues are 75, 80%, just because of the high level of poverty and deprivation. So, there are it's a postcode lottery. It's very much linked to areas and pockets of social deprivation. Now, Brenda, when she was talking about this, mentioned the intergenerational issues, and that's absolutely critical to this, because one of the things that the researchers found, and we found as well, was that where you had families where the parents or carers themselves had language and communication difficulties, that tended to pass on to the next generation. And that's because with having a relatively low vocabulary level, low communication skills, the kind of language-rich environment that kids need 0 to 3 just isn't there. You then end up with a very language-deprived community. And one of the things that we've found as well is that over the years, there's been a breakdown in local communities, there's a breakdown in the extended family. So again, the natural zones where kids can learn new words and new constructs in language, they've diminished massively as well. So that you've got very isolated children being brought up in very isolated settings with parents themselves who've got very limited language, and it's that self-fulfilling sort of prophecy, if you like. And it also, people have been quite prejudicial about this by saying families like this produce children like that, as if it's kind of genetic. And there's been some national talk from some politicians about the fact that it's supposedly genetic. Now, my experience, my professional experience, and all the research points to the fact that whilst there might be some genetic involvement, the huge part of it is the nurturing, and it's the nurturing environment, the language-rich environment that the kids are brought up in. So those are the key elements for me. There is this element of ghettoisation as well, where you've got lots of people in poverty clustered very, very closely together. So there's an aspect of social planning as well in terms of housing and so on that's crucial to this.
A lot of schools now have places for 3 and 4 year olds because they've realised that by the time they were getting them at 5, it's too late. There already is that huge gap, and to start making it up is very difficult in a 12-month span. So most schools take 4 year olds as well, so it gives them that 2-year window. Then it soon became apparent that it was the 2-year-olds that we needed to target. And 2-year-olds, the Early Years Alliance, they described them as the forgotten sector. And I think to a certain extent that is true. At Howgill, we have over 100 2-year-old children in 4 different settings. And when they come in at the very beginning, if they don't have those language and speech skills, then they're already disadvantaged. It's probably the first time in their lives that they realise that they don't have the skills that are necessary. And then that causes low self-esteem, lack of confidence, which then impacts even further. And then we get into all of the scenario that Jim's just described.
So in terms of the charitable sector, what it can do is it can provide seed corn opportunities. So it can actually provide input into areas that are literally not being covered. And that's really what we're trying to do in this project, is trial something new. And actually, charitable sector has the flexibility to operate out with the whole statutory network and the whole statutory framework. I can actually trial new ideas, so it can be quite innovative, and that's certainly our experience of it. In addition, it can fill gaps that the local authority agencies or the government are not actually filling at the moment. So they can provide services that are just not being provided. And that's typically how a lot of charities, like Bernardo's, for example, got into this kind of work, by filling a gap where there's a genuine, desperate need for services. But yeah, I mean, I think there's opportunities there for charities to be very innovative and very progressive by actually stepping into situations and trialing new methods and new approaches, which can then be scaled up on a much larger scale and perhaps made statutory in the long term.
We're looking at working with settings of children and looking at speech and language, developing programs, training staff, which is absolutely essential to doing any of this work. But it's not your usual working with parents for 6 weeks, ticking a box, saying, yes, it's been done. This is something very different. This will train the staff who will then work with parents over a much longer term than is usual. And so what we're looking at now is, through this communications project, is working with other partners as well as ourselves to look again at what we're doing and how we can enrich the curriculum even further, and to show an even bigger progression from when the children come into us to when they leave. And then hopefully they're ready for that next stage and then moving into school. So this is going to be so important. And the fact that it's being done over 3 years allows us that chance to take that really long-term view and to assess exactly what we're doing.
One of the things that we think is so great is that we can help really take the whole thing on a step further. And as Brenda said, this is a 3-year project. We're working with the University of Cumbria to evaluate that. So we'll have some really good evidence that we can actually use in mounting that argument to extend it and make it statutory. So I think one of the great things for us is that it's an opportunity to trial it in a home setting. So Bray, they are obviously working very much with parents and carers at the front end, and that's really important. Whereas Howgill have got the nursery settings where they're working with groups of children, and at Love Barrow Families, they've got a whole family centre base where they're working with families right across a whole range of needs, including housing, education and welfare more generally. So it's a great opportunity to see how we can enhance language development in lots of different settings and see if we can somehow come out with a model that we can sort of extrapolate from. And it may well be that it's actually a combination of these, a continuum of things, rather than one or the other. But I mean, the bottom line is very simple. We're trying to get more language stimulus to babies and toddlers, and that's it. So it's a fantastic opportunity, I think, not just for the guys out in West Cumbria, but for us as well to learn from them. We've got some excellent providers out there. It's not about us coming in and saying, look, we know better than you. It's a collaborative venture, and we can learn a huge amount from these guys because they're very skilled practitioners. From my point of view, because of my experience in education and care, I was really interested in sort of investing in innovation, in progressive thinking. So I saw it as like an investment in people, in ideas, in taking things forward, rather than as a sort of donation to sort of hand over some cash and let them sort of get on with it. And I've salved my conscience and walk away. And I wanted to very much be involved in it and be part of it, whether the other people wanted it or not. I mean, they're stuck with me, unfortunately. But that was really, really good. And then Anne-Lee sort of took over the project and came back to me and said, right, well, I've got 3 bids. And it seems to me from what you're saying that these 3 could be linked together under the banner of sort of communication, under the Cumbria Communication Project. And that was great. That was a little bit of genius there to say, look, you've got that continuum now where you could be looking at supporting mums in the home or carers in the home. You've got nurseries, and then you've got a family centre. And I've been looking for a model of delivery. And I think what's clear is, with all the research that's been done, in several government papers have been published, 2016, 2017, and so on, all saying from the government itself, there's a massive need for progression in this area. There's a need for a huge investment in this area, and they've done nothing about it. And I think one of the reasons for that is there isn't a really clear model of how to address it. And I think if we in West Cumbria are able to come up with a model, a conceptual model that actually deals with some of these issues, that would be a really, really exciting thing to do. So that first step of being very open-minded, not prescriptive. Secondly, then Anne-Lee seeing that there were opportunities to link together what were effectively discrete projects into one that had some sort of integrity and coherence to it was absolutely brilliant. And they supported that seed corn idea of using money to invest in innovation. And effectively, by working with Cumbria Community Foundation, they put that seed corn idea together, which is absolutely fantastic. And I see myself as somebody who's just interested in ideas. I want to help and I want to take things forward. And I see it as a long-term investment in our kids, and they're our future. So it just makes absolute sense to me. But if there are other people like me out there who want to get involved, yeah, if they could get involved in funding projects like this, brilliant. But at the very least, we'd hope, or we'd be very pleased if they championed us, if they supported us, if they were prepared to endorse what we're doing once they found out about it. And I think it's a very compelling case that we're making. The kids aged in that 0 to 3, 0 to 4 age range are definitely well worth investing in for the future. And what's great about the way CCF have set it up is this is a collaborative project. And I know from their own goals, they're very interested this year in innovation. They're also interested in collaboration between partners. So I think, hopefully we fit their bill as well. So, hopefully it's a marriage made in heaven. And, I think it's about learning from each other. Certainly we're learning a lot from the guys out in West Cumbria. It's just amazing. And I think by involving ICANN, but also the University of Cumbria, we're building quite a powerful team here. And if we can come out with a model that gives us a way forward for this very neglected group of people, it would be a wonderful thing.